Across the community of Megami Tensei, there seems to be this false yet widely spread notion that the two games, Persona and Shin Megami Tensei, have no sort of cosmological connection whatsoever, and I'm here to really shut this down. Before I really delve into that, I have to first establish that all Persona, meaning 1 through 5, are all within the same universe. First off, the director of Persona 3 through 5, Katsura Hashino, just outright says that all the games take place in a connected universe. This isn't the only time it's stated, as Yu Namba says in an interview that Persona 3 also takes place in the same universe as Persona 2. The reason why this is important is because Persona 1 and 2 explicitly reference the existence of demons, the main enemies in Shin Megami Tensei. Other SMT characters, such as Kyoji Kuzunoha alongside Tamaki Uchida from SMT also show up in Persona 2, which means there's really no reason to separate the two verses in such an arbitrary manner. The main contention with Personas and demons being equal in strength mainly comes from this one statement from Joker during the events of Persona 2, where he essentially alludes to Personas being inferior to demons, but there are a lot of issues with that statement. For one, you beat him. In order to progress the game, you have to beat his demons with your Personas, which really goes to show that he's just talking out his ass and his words have no validity whatsoever. And secondly, much more reputable sources already state that Personas and demons are actually equal in strength. For example, Igor just blatantly tells you that the power of demons is used in order to make Persona, and without the power of Persona, you just couldn't fight demons whatsoever.
There's also the fact that fighting Personas with demons is stated to be fighting fire with fire, an expression I really shouldn't have to explain. People also like to say that demons coming from the axiom and Personas coming from the collective unconscious makes them entirely different, but this is an even worse argument because they're the exact same thing.
During the events of Shin Megami Tensei 4, Stefan elaborates on the nature of the Expanse and basically tells you that it's just made of people's thoughts. Same could be said for the Axiom, as during a developer interview for Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse, they talk about how the Axiom was made from people's shared awareness and it's likened to the collective unconscious. Even outside these two specific instances, the games themselves, including the most recent one, do a pretty good job of telling you that demons are just the embodiments of people's minds and souls, the exact same way Personas are. But that's pretty much it for me. Persona and SMT pretty clearly share a cosmology, and all the evidence against it is just flimsy at best. But if you made it this far, drop a follow. Thanks for watching.
Alright, let's talk about how all the Persona games are connected. Before we begin, please follow my YouTube at Refantaszio, same as my TikTok. Since this app is getting banned, I will continue to upload there and repost my old content there, as well as make more long-form content. With that out of the way, let's continue. Many people argue that Persona 1 and 2 and Persona 3 and 5 are connected due to the universal reset at the end of Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, but this statement is never backed up by anything in verse. To start, in Persona 3, the moment you meet Igor, he tells you it's been years since he had a guest, which obviously is referring to Tatsuya since he was the last person to enter the Velvet Room. Official statements also add to this claim, as the remake is stated to hold connections with previous games, alongside the fact that the Kirijo group is stated to be a branch of the Nanjo group from Persona 1. Other sources, like the Persona 4 official guide, tell you that Philemon does exist in Persona 3 and 4, he just chooses not to make an outright appearance. Nameless and Belladonna are also mentioned, and they're even alluded to exist in the Persona 3 novel, Velvet Blue. Other characters from Persona 2 are referenced, such as Katsuya on the TV in Persona 5, where they mention a detective with red sunglasses, which is obviously him. Alongside blatant plot points for future games, such as Kandori's research in Persona 2, which was in pursuit of development of artificial persona users, which is exactly what Strega is in Persona 3. And if all this doesn't convince you, here's two statements from both the director of Persona 3 and 5 and the project leader stating that all games take place in the same universe. So all in all Persona takes place in the exact same continuity, regardless of the universal reset. I don't know how this misconception became so widespread and so easily believed, but it's easily debunked when looking at the actual content within the games and even outside sources. But that's about it from me. If you made it this far, please drop a follow and sub to my YouTube at Refantaszio, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.
Velvet Room is one of the oldest staples in the Persona series. It's said to exist between dream and reality, mind and matter, but what does that really mean? In layman's terms, it means it doesn't exist. The Velvet Room is a space of pure nothingness. That's why those who don't have a contract can't see it. Its non-existent nature is something that's hinted throughout all the games, as they directly mention that the laws of time and space don't exist inside of it, and it's just directly confirmed to not exist in Persona 2. When Yaldabaoth erases the Phantom Thieves from cognition, it makes sense that they would exist in a place where neither the material or the mental exist, which finally would mean a place of nothingness. The inspiration from this comes from the Schrodinger's cat experiment, as it enters a state of intermediate existence when there isn't a wildcard present. Even the director for Persona 1, Koji Okada, in an interview, thinks that Igor and Philemon are just fabrications of the protagonist's mind, so even they don't exist in a conventional sense. And in the Persona 3 movie, Elizabeth distinctly lacks a shadow whenever she stands over a water fountain next to Makoto. This is just a small tidbit of information I think it's underappreciated by the fanbase. You ever wonder how Persona users know how to fight? With the small handful of exceptions, they're all ordinary high school students with next to no combat experience. So how are they wielding guns and swords effortlessly against shadows and demons? That would also come from their persona. When you take on a persona, your mental capabilities are altered to fit that persona. This was showcased in Persona 2, where Tatsuya admits his mastery over a sword and flames comes directly from his persona, Apollo, even though he has no direct knowledge of sword fighting. This extends to all forms of combat. This is why they can wield an assortment of gag weapons, like Narukami utilizing a golf club in the same way he uses an actual sword in the fight. Considering some of the personas they can choose to wield are outright gods of combat, like Siegfried, Chiyu, Odin, it's kind of surprising how underappreciated how skilled these characters are.
Scaling the Demi Fiend from SMT 3. Just like with all the prior scaling videos made on this channel, I'll do a brief overview of Megami Tensei's cosmology to prove why Demi Fiend scales to it. There are 4 stages of creation in Megami Tensei's cosmology: Asaya, the human world, Yetsuraya, Baraya, and the Azelith. Yetsuraya is stated to be a realm beyond time and far higher in dimension than the dimensions of the human world. 2 of the spheres that comprise Yetsuraya, Yasad and Hod, are stated to be the temple of material functions. This should include things like dimensions, spatial extensions, and coordinates, as all those things are based in physicality. Yetsuraya is then transcended by Baraya, as Yetsuraya is a less divine existence, and Baraya is entirely spiritual, making it outerversal as it transcends material composition. The final world, the Azelith, is stated to be completely inaccessible to all lower worlds. Considering that all these other worlds are already spatially displaced, this would have to refer to a beyond infinite hierarchy, making it high outerversal, as it transcends undimensioned worlds the same way undimensioned worlds transcend dimensional worlds. Demi Fiend would scale through this through his fight with Metatron, who's metaphysically stated to be the exact same entity as Shaddai. Shaddai is one of God's names, a manifestation of his power, and as such should be relative to his other name, Elohim, who is the personification of Hawkma within the Azelith. He also scales above Kagetsuchi, ending the cycle of reincarnation, and then goes on to fight Lucifer himself, though this battle was stated to be a test. There's vague scaling to him being at Yahweh's level, but this would be a downscale at best. Anyways, if you made it this far, drop a follow. Thanks for watching. Scaling Nobino from Shin Megami Tensei 5. Like the other scales, a brief overview of Megami Tensei's cosmology is needed to explain why Nobino scales to it. There are 4 stages to creation: Asaya, the human world, Yetsuraya, Baraya, and the Azelith. Yetsuraya is a higher dimensional plane of existence and is stated to transcend time, making it 5D. 2 spheres within Yetsuraya, Yasad and Hod, are stated to hold all material functions, which should include things like mathematics and spatial dimensions, as they're a part of material existence. Baraya transcends Yetsuraya as it's a more divine existence and abandons physicality altogether, making it outerversal since it transcends material composition. The Azelith is completely inaccessible to all lower realms, which makes it high outerversal as it transcends undimensioned worlds the same way those worlds transcend dimensioned ones. Nobino is capable of wielding the throne, the source of power that forged the world, and the source of all existence as divine nothingness itself that God possesses, or destroying the throne entirely. No matter what ending route, he can also engage with Lucifer, who transcended God and the throne to become a higher existence beyond both, and absorb his power to free the universe from the Mandala system. By post-game, he can also fight and defeat Primal Satan, who's literally composed of Lucifer's essence and is a requirement to even summon him. This pretty much ends my scale for Nobino. This was pretty fun to make. Nobino is my personal favorite pro tag from SMT. The next one I plan to scale is Demi Fiend, since I know he's the most popular pro tag. But if you made it this far, drop a follow. Thanks for watching. Scaling Makoto Yuki from Persona 3. Like Joker's scaling, Makoto's scaling hinges on the Tree of Life, so I'll try to break that down quickly so we can move on why he scales to it. There are 4 stages in Megami Tensei's cosmology: Asaya, the human world, Yetsuraya, Baraya, and the Azelith. Yetsuraya is stated to be a higher dimensional plane of existence on numerous occasions, transcending space and time entirely, and 2 of the spheres within Yetsuraya, Yasad and Hod, are stated to include the template of material functions, which should include things like spatial extensions, vectors, and mathematics. Yetsuraya is then completely transcended by Baraya, making Baraya an outerversal realm, as it's an undimensioned world of spirit and mind unbound by physicality. The highest and final world, the Azelith, is stated to be completely inaccessible to all lower realms, even the ones previously mentioned, making it high outerversal, transcending the hierarchy of undimensioned spaces the way undimensioned spaces transcend dimensional ones. Getting onto why Makoto scales. Against Nyx, he attains the Universe Arcana, the end of the Fool's journey. The universe is stated to be in union with the Tree of Life itself, and users are stated to be a godlike being at one with the world. It's important to note that with and only with this power does Igor even find it conceivable to defeat Nyx, which is incredibly impressive considering the fact that he oversaw the events of Persona 2, yet never once viewed Nyarlathotep as absolute or undefeatable. Igor's power has even been described to be capable of seeing fate, yet he couldn't anticipate Makoto awakening to the Universe Arcana. Throughout the game, numerous sources refer to the universe as the ultimate beginning and end. and when unlocked, Makoto is said to have all potentials within him and the power to actualize anything he wants. Metis even notes that Makoto's existence isn't even one that belongs in the human side anymore, due to him tapping into the Great Seal, which is literally just this manipulation of the inner universe. In all, Makoto would cap at high universal, achieving what I think to be is the pinnacle of power in the Persona universe. The next Persona protagonist I'll be scaling will be Narukami. I apologize for the long break in videos. Marvel Rivals had me in a chokehold, but I wanted to release something off before the new year. I don't intend to take long breaks like this again, so I apologize for the wait. If you made it this far, drop a follow. Thanks for watching. Scaling Narukami from Persona 4. Before we begin, please follow my YouTube at Refantaszio, same as my TikTok, the link is in bio. Since the app is getting banned, I'll continue to upload there and repost my old content there, as well as make more long-form content. With that out of the way, let's continue. Like with the previous protagonist, I need to do a brief overview of Megami Tensei's cosmology and how you use skills to it. There are 4 stages to creation of Megami Tensei: Asaya, the human world, Yetzirah, Bariah, and the Azalith. Yetzirah is said to be a higher dimensional plane of existence that transcends time on numerous occasions, which can cement it at 5D at a low ball. 2 of the spheres within Yetzirah, Yesod and Had, are said to contain the template of all material functions, which should include things like spatial extensions and mathematics, considering dimensions are only physical coordinates in space. Yetzirah is then completely transcended by Bariah, as Yetzirah is a less divine realm and therefore an emanation of Bariah, making Bariah an outer versal realm, as it's entirely spiritual and transcends material composition. During the events of Persona 4, Amino Sagir would then attempt to fuse and expand the unconscious into the real world, which would be an outer versal feat, if not for you and the investigation team stopping him. Later on, he fights Izanami, who is the full totality of Amino Sagiri, and his awakening in a Izanagi no Okami in the World Arcana allows him to completely erase her from existence, with his willpower being said to transcend all of mankind. This should include the Azalith, the highest level of the Tree of Life, which is completely inaccessible from lower realms, which will make it high outer versal, as it transcends outer versal the same way outer versal transcends the previous concepts mentioned. There are other instances as well, such as him fighting Enlil, who had complete control over the Akashic Records, which gives the user manipulation over all possibilities, and then trap those worlds in literal film reels, which is the most blatant example of reality fiction ever, and then would have those realms erode into reality. You get stronger during the events of Arena and Ultimax, with Hino Kagetsuchi being said to be capable of destroying the entirety of the unconscious, but whether this goes to AP is iffy at best to me. But in all, like the other 2 pro tags, Yu caps at high outer versal. Sadly, he appears to be the weakest of the 3 modern protagonists, but he's still pretty cool nonetheless. Anyways, that's it for me. If you made it this far, drop a follow, sub to YouTube, link in bio, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Alright, let's scale Joker from Persona 5. Before we begin, we need to do an overview of Megami Tensei's cosmology and why Joker scales to it exactly. To start, Megami Tensei operates off a cosmological model called the Tree of Life, which maps out the process of God's creation of the universe. There are 4 stages in the Tree of Life: Asaya, the human world, Yetzirah, Bariah, and the Azalith. Yetzirah is stated to be far higher in dimension than the human world and transcends the past, present, and future entirely, effectively making it 5D at a low ball. In Yetzirah is one of the Sephiroth, Had, which also contains the temple for material functions, which should include things like space, time, mathematics, and dimensionality, as those are based in materialism. This realm is then transcended by Bariah, which is entirely spiritual in nature, which means that it would lack Yetzirah's spatial temporal properties, making it outer through transcending material composition. Bariah is still cut off from the final world, the Azalith, and is even stated to be inaccessible from all lower worlds, which will qualify it for high outer versal, as it transcends Bariah in the same way Bariah transcends dimensionality. Joker should scale to this, as he directly fights Yaldabaoth as the Holy Grail, who fused the Azalith and the human world together. And Yaldabaoth is stated to be on a completely different level than the Holy Grail, the person who performed the feat. And by the events of the 3rd semester, they go on to fight Mariki, who's stated to be on a completely different level from all previous threats, which should include Yaldabaoth. And during the events of the fight, Joker manages to press Mariki not once, but twice in evolving his persona, and Mariki still can't overpower him until he fuses with Adam Kadmon, with Adam Kadmon being stated to be an imitation of God and the very power of God. So in all, this caps Joker pretty easily at high outer versal. I plan to scale the Persona 3 and 4 protagonists next, so if you made it this far, drop a follow. Thanks for watching. Okay, I didn't plan to make this video, but after the success of the last video, I figure I might as well milk the Joker hype some more and go over some of his hacks. Joker is both the Fool and the Wild Card, which gives him access to an infinite number of personas at his disposal, which makes him incredibly versatile. Personas are also directly stated to give their user their mythological powers, so he always knows how to use them. Now we can get into the most pivotal part of Joker's existence, which is him being the Trickster. Tricksters are described as people who would oppose fate and desire change, and we see this happen throughout the course of the game. During Chihiya's
tarot reading, he's directly stated to have changed the flow of destiny twice before her very eyes. And his entry in Persona 5 Tactica, Joker stated to have the ability to defy fate, with Persona 5 Striker suggesting that Joker even broke through it outright. Next, we can talk about Joker's more standard hacks, like the elemental powers that are granted by his personas. He's got things like Absolute Zero spells, existence erasure spells of both dark and light variety, spells that can cause telekinetic spatial explosions, attack reflection spells. He can literally debuff you by making your body decay, or amp himself to the point where people that are on par with him get completely blitzed, heal off entire limbs, or just come back from existence erasure off of sheer willpower. He can literally seal you into his mask and steal your powers and make you a persona. Or he can make you forget how to use all your powers and nullify them entirely. This isn't even mentioning his almighty spells, which completely bypass the omnipotent aura, which allows you to manipulate the laws of logic in order to prevent people from harming you. There's honestly a lot more hacks I didn't even cover in this video, but I don't want this video to get too long, and honestly I just made this on a whim, so hope you enjoyed. Okay, Joker versus Demi. This fight is way closer than you think. This is a sponsor video, my first ever, so thank you to Mori for the $2. If you have a sponsor video in mind, send it my way. I'm gonna try to be more consistent, cash up in bio, but without further ado, let's get started. Contrary to popular belief, this fight's actually way closer than you think, and not a complete blowout. For starters, personas and demons are functionally the same, and this is backed up by numerous sources, so many that I'm only going to display a few on screen, even though there are far more. So the idea that Joker can't keep up with any of Demi-Fiend's demons and or feats really just has no weight. They also scale relatively the same, with Demi-Fiend as of SMT 5 endings being confirmed to have contributed to the fight against Yahweh, though his death is still largely accredited to Lucifer, so at best he can just downscale. Meanwhile, Joker has direct scaling to Adam Kadmon, who's said to be the exact same entity as Yahweh and wields his exact powers. Effectively, this means that their strengths are virtually equal, with Joker being slightly stronger for actually forcing Marky to fuse with Adam, which makes him magnitude stronger. Demi-Fiend still has a massive advantage in the Masakato's Magatama, which pretty much nullifies all of Joker's abilities minus almighty attacks. And with having virtually identical hacks via having mostly the same spells, it really just boils down to their strongest abilities, Gaia Rage and Sinful Shell, both being one-shot techniques, and this is pretty much just up to your choice. But that's really it. Sorry if it was a bit anticlimactic, but if you like it, drop a follow. Thanks for watching.